And I think the biggest thing for a service provider is realizing that you have to have a minimum that you're willing to provide this service for. And you need to stick to that minimum.
Sure.
Because the moment you go lower than whatever that is, then you're gonna feel like you're working for free.
How's it going, guys? And welcome to another episode of Secrets of Silent Success. Today we have the one and only Jennifer Allen of Just Elope. How are you doing this Wednesday afternoon?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad y'all are here.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get into it. So you started Just Elope kind of based upon your own experience with elopement and marriage.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how Just Elope got started.
So back in 2010, my husband proposed and he was leaving for a deployment within 5 days. And so we wanted to get married before he left. Well, it's kind of hard to plan a wedding in 5 days.
Yes.
Especially if you're in any type of financial bind.
Sure.
Because that is a big purchase at the last minute. So we looked for a company that could at least do something for us so that we did not have to go to City Hall.
Okay.
And I couldn't find it. So we ended up going to City Hall. I actually my husband had on the same clothes he proposed in.
Wow.
It was a Tuesday. My mom was there, my 6-year-old niece. And that was that. We went, we got married. About 4 hours later, he left for deployment.
Wow.
So from Thursday of getting engaged to Tuesday, we actually got married. And while he was deployed, I was supposed to start trying to plan this extravagant wedding and all these beautiful things to help me pass the time while he was gone. But I quickly realized that the expenses that were associated with having a wedding, I just didn't value.
Okay.
And it's not that I think that people overspend on weddings. It's just that that's not something that I placed in high regard.
Sure.
And it wasn't until I was in the middle of it that I realized that. And it's like, how much do you like somebody to pay, $50 per plate for them to eat? Like, what?
Yeah, $20,000 for a venue.
Correct. So, plus we were already legally married.
Sure.
So some of that excitement that comes along with being engaged and and getting married, it was already gone.
Sure.
And so years passed, I ended up learning photography and started a photography business. And I'm like, you know what? I want to create, we kept trying to plan something. Like we'll do something for our, when he come home, let's try to plan something. Well, let's do something for our 5-year renewal. Well, let's do something for like lucky number 7. And so I'm like, okay, this is not working. We ended up having 2 kids in that time frame. I don't know if you have any kids or not.
It makes it tougher. I don't have any kids, but I'm sure it makes it tougher.
Let me tell you about how much daycare costs.
There you go. That's a whole nother mortgage.
A whole nother mortgage. And our boys are 19 months apart.
Wow.
So our first 2 are 19 months apart. And we have a 9-month-old now. But it was insane. And so it's like, I couldn't justify the expense of having a wedding when we were already married. We had kids, that sort of thing. So I said, you know what? I want to create a business to where another bride does not have to choose between either running off to Vegas or going to City Hall. There has to be some type of local medium that we can come up with.
Gotcha.
And Just Elope was born.
Gotcha. So it really sounds like you found a hole in the market based upon your personal experience. What gave you the courage to say, well, why not me fill that gap?
I've always believed that there's nothing that I cannot do.
Sure.
I'm a firm believer in that. My husband is my biggest hype man. He's like, if I think it, he's like, okay. And him giving me that boost always of, I believe that you can do this, has always helped me. Now, granted, I've always had that entrepreneur mind frame. Gotcha. And so I've started and stopped a ton of businesses. So when I got to Just Elope, he was kind of like, okay, Jen, he kind of had this hesitation, but it was a fair hesitation. Because if you started and stopped so many things, people often speak about the support system that they do or do not get from their spouses or family members. you have to take accountability to see, you know, well, along the way, what have you started and stopped?
Sure.
To where now people look at it like, okay, is this just another thing that you're excited about today and you want to put to bed tomorrow?
Sure.
And so I stuck with it. And once he saw, okay, she's serious about this, then he was all in.
So Just Elope was definitely not one of the things that just started and stopped. You talk about having done over 200 plus weddings so far. What's been your strategy to get brides, to get clients?
So everything up until this point has been extremely organic. Word of mouth growth. Our very first year in business in 2017, we booked 8 weddings. Just for perspective, it's 2021, we've booked 255.
Wow.
And so last year alone, we did 100. And so our strategy has always been to provide the best possible experience for each and every couple as if it was our very first time doing this and have that same level of excitement. We tell our team, this is routine for us, but this is their first wedding.
Absolutely.
So every wedding that we go into it with this just joy of, we cannot wait to get you married, and that rubs off on the client. And we have so many people that come to us because their friend got married. They were at a wedding that we did, and then they wanted us. And so that organic growth has been our biggest thing. It doesn't help that our name is Just Elope, and when you Google that you want to elope in Texas, we're the first thing that popped up in a Google search.
Gotcha.
And so having a great publicist, been able to get us some good press has also played a role. But even prior to that, to those things, we had already booked, you know, over, 150 weddings before we had the opportunity to get to do anything.
Gotcha.
And it's just the consistency of great weddings, great images, keeping it in their face. So many people feel self-conscious about overly advertising their business, which I don't understand, because Fashion Nova will text you, DM you, email you within like a 30-minute period if you leave something in your cart. And you are afraid to post about your business every day because you don't want to get on anybody's nerve. Well, I want to get on your nerve, in your pocket, wherever it is. I want to be where the money resides. Like, that's where I'm trying to be at.
Gotcha. Well, how did you overcome that? I don't know if you had any initial apprehension, but how did you overcome that? I don't want to bother people with my social media posts and my email blasts, so on and so forth.
So I kind of kept this thought process of, when we first started, we were only advertising on our on my personal page because nobody's just looking for my business. And I think sometimes people assume because you make a business page and a website that customers just going to come flocking in.
There you go.
It's not happening. So we were advertising on my personal page. So I made sure that for every time I posted something about my business, I would make like 3 personal posts. Because I didn't want it to be, because it was not a business page. And I didn't want to run it as a business page. But I made sure that I would highlight like, oh, y'all, it's so exciting. Like, look at this couple that we got to marry. And that genuine support system from people seeing our business start from literally me making an announcement like, hey, we're starting this new business, to we have a billboard off of 35 now.
I've seen it.
It's just like the growth and the organicness of our community that we have has been really good. Got
you. You talked about doing photography before this. We have been in the wedding, videography, photography lane for 6-7 years now. Weddings are competitive, whether you're the caterer or the photographer, whether you're the event coordinator, planner. How do you separate yourself in such a competitive market?
So luckily at this point that we're at now, our numbers and our reviews do a lot of the talking for us. But prior to that, it was just that genuine conversation that when I personally have talked and booked every single wedding that we've ever done, there is no huge team of people behind this brand. It is every wedding, every contract, every invoice, every email I have sent. So to give people that personal customer service touch, they take that with them and they tell someone else about that. And so as we're growing and we are going to bring somebody on that's going to handle that aspect of it to free me up to do other things, like that's the culture now. The culture is anybody that comes on, whether they're our contractors that shoot for us, officiate, do day of coordinating, the culture of Just Elope is extreme customer service. Like I drive that home. No one is above doing the extra step, seeing somebody that needs something. We're only with these people because of it's an elopement, a short period of time.
Sure.
2 hours max. You can do anything for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Even on your worst day, you can put on a brave face for 2 hours. And so that is just the culture of our business. And what separates us from other companies is no matter what, like you're going to get that white glove service from start to finish.
Absolutely. Yeah, I tell people all the time, when you're going into a service-based business, the soft skills, your promptness, your responsiveness, your customer service, the way your interpersonal communication skills, that's more important than your product or service.
100%.
Where did your mindset to give this white glove customer service come from? Was that a background that you had? Is it just like, hey, that's what I wanted? Where did that mindset come from?
It truly is a what I will want type of thing. Everything that I do for Just Elope, I look at it like, if this service was being given to me, to my mom, to my sister, how would I want somebody to treat them? You know, if my boys were running this business, how would I want the way that they ran it to be a reflection of who I am as their mom, my husband is as their dad.
Sure.
And so that is how we position it, because I always want them to see that we do go above and beyond. And so for me, it's like, bad customer service, I cannot stand. A poor business owner venting on social media about your potential clients or past clients, those things make me cringe.
Sure.
That's why you have your close circle of friends. Now I may go to my husband and say, "Woo, child, let me tell you what happened to me today."
Sure.
But I would never portray that on social media, and I think that because those things bother me, I wanted to make sure, and I've worked for someone before who I didn't have the best experience with them as a boss.
Sure.
And I knew, and this was like right when I started Just Elope, and I knew then that I would never want to be that type of person. I would never want to talk to my team the way that we were talked to.
Sure.
I would never want to handle business the way that it was handled. And that moment truly did, even though it wasn't the best thing that I was going through at the time. It really set the tone for the type of business owner that I have become.
Got you. So I definitely want to talk about that team member culture aspect. But before that, you talked about going above and beyond. I know you've had elopements at the state fair, even a Whataburger, really making the impossible possible for your clients. Like, what is the thought process? How do you make the impossible possible? How do you cater to each client and then be able to scale that to do 100+ weddings in a year?
I think that, well, number one, what we have found that works is we do a lot of rinse and repeat.
Okay.
Rinse and repeat. So the way our packages work is that if you want to get married tomorrow, your wedding would look exactly the same as if you got married 6 months from now.
Okay.
And that's because we have a structured system. Everything that's included is the same for each and every person if you choose from this menu, basically.
Okay.
So you choose from this menu. If you show up today, boom, we got it. Everything is exactly the same. If you get married 6 months from now, boom, everything will be exactly the same. So that allows us to get everything down packed. We know the timing, we know the group, we know the space, we know all these things to give people this memorable experience.
Sure.
So whenever a couple comes along that wants something different, we already have the framework in place.
Okay.
And so we're able to say, in order to make that happen, you need to do this. So we're not rewriting the book every single time.
Gotcha.
And I think that for entrepreneurs, it's really important to get your processes down and have the thought process of you want to automate as much as you possibly can. Because if you're starting from scratch every single time, you're losing money. Because if you're having to come in and recreate it every time,
Yeah.
You're spending more time trying to get it going instead of actually working with somebody.
Gotcha.
So even within customers and potential clients wanting to have a wedding at the state fair, at Whataburger, we just created a package that's, hey, you choose your own place. Like we have these places for you to choose from, or you can choose your own place. And if you do, then you'll get all of these things that we provide. So no matter what, if the only thing that's changing is the location, our team is still doing the exact same thing every single time.
Gotcha. Now that's high level entrepreneurial thinking when you start talking about automation.
Yeah.
A lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, we get lost in the weeds of working in the business, working for the clients. We forget about working on the business, right? Developing processes, strategies, automation. Where did you start for creating the automated systems, for creating the structure for your team? Where did you start for someone who has a business, has clients that's profitable, but they want to make it more automated, more seamless? Where do you start?
I spent a summer in 2018 and I tried a free trial of so many different automated systems that where I can, because I was having to send my contract. I was typing up contracts, scanning them at work, emailing them over, trying to figure it out. And then the client's like, well, I don't have a printer. And I'm like, well, I don't know. And then I'm like, well, whose invoices due? Now I'm trying to figure out on the calendar what, and I'm like, there has to be a better way, because although I'm a business owner, before I'm anything, I'm my husband's wife, I'm my children's mother. And so it's important to me to take back my time to be able to pour it back into my family. Because what is the point of making money if you're not able to spend it on the things that you wish you had when you didn't have any money?
Absolutely. What am I working this hard for?
Exactly. So I spent an entire summer just trying all types of automated systems that I could try, and to see what felt comfortable for me. You know, everybody has their own preference. Honeybook and like all these things. Everybody has something that they love. Well, 17 Hats is what did it for me. So I landed on that. I was able to create my contracts and I realized quickly, oh man, if I sit down for the next week and I just really dig in and just create a contract for every single location, go ahead and create these automated emails. If I just take the time out and just do it, I only got to do it once.
There you go.
And that's what it came down to. It's slow right now. What can I make best of my time? But even if it was busy, if you're in a busy season, you still feel like, you know, I can't do this. You can hire, an assistant for the day, a virtual assistant that solely is going to set up that for you if you can't make the time. And that's so important, because you have to take your time back or you will just a hamster on a wheel.
Absolutely. So we talked about automation. You named out a lot of CRM systems, Dubsado, you said 17 Hats, Honeybook. Go Google them all, right? And figure out what works for you. What other pieces of advice do you have for those who are service-based in their entrepreneurial journey? You talk about quality control, automation. What other advice and tips do you have for those who are in the service industry?
We hear so much about people finding their niche, right? So it's almost like, oh, I'm so tired of hearing that. I'm so tired of hearing stay in my lane, that sort of thing. But it's super important, because you cannot be of service to everybody. It's impossible. And I think the biggest thing for a service provider is realizing that you have to have a minimum that you're willing to provide this service for. And you need to stick to that minimum. Because the moment you go lower than whatever that is, then you're going to feel like you're working for free. And so when you're thinking about pricing, if ever there's an opportunity that you say, okay, well, I want to run a special. Well, if you know it costs you $1 at bare minimum to run your business, then you can never run a sale for lower than $1, because you're now working for less than what you deserve. And so I think that just as a service-based business, it's really, really important to figure out who your target is. And I know people get so tired of hearing that. It's like, oh, that's everywhere. Who's your target audience? but it's so important.
Yep.
When you think about these big brands and who they market to, you're not seeing that commercial by mistake.
Yep.
You're not going, if you notice, even when you go into like a Walmart or different things, the type of clothing that they have out is different here in our town than where it is if we were in a bigger city.
Sure.
Because they know the market that they are catering to.
Yep.
And as an independent owner and entrepreneur, it's really important for you to figure out your market because everybody's not your client.
Sure.
So you're going to spend so much time wondering why you're failing, but you're not failing. You're just not reaching the people that you need to reach.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Got you. So, lot to unpack there. You talk about know your minimum. I understand for a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, when you first start out, you got to pay the rent.
Right.
And so you start getting any client that you can get.
Right.
I seen an Instagram video that you talked about working, I believe, as an executive assistant for 4 years, even while you had your business. That way you can name your price. You don't have to take everything, right? Because you have your income from your 9 to 5 to be able to pay the rent, to feed the kids. I think you had something that said like, fate, or taking a leap of faith, don't feed my family.
It does not. It does
right?
not.
So talk to me a little bit about that, because a lot of people feel like it's a negative connotation to stay at my 9 to 5. But no, that helped me pay the rent, so then I can be able to create my ideal business with my ideal clients.
Anytime you're chasing the money, you're never going to reach it because you are going to take any and everything. Stay at work as long as you possibly can. Society is telling, social media is telling us the only way to be a boss is to quit your job. I'd rather work, I'd rather make $50,000 working for my own business than make $100,000 working for somebody else. What? I want $100,000.
Absolutely.
If that's coming from me getting up and going to work every day, I want $100,000 because my family does not care where that money came from. My children's personal training does not care where that money, there is no perfect way to do it. If staying at your job is going to allow you to be able to continue the lifestyle that you have and be able to create these systems and not have this stress of, what if I don't have a good month? So for example, we've had $30,000 months. Our business has not made $1 in the last 30 days though. So although we are a high 6-figure earning business, I couldn't tell you what was going on right now to where that wasn't a thing. What if I didn't have any other source of income? Like, what if my husband didn't have a full-time job? What if we didn't have money saved? I'm a really big saver. So it's like, what if I wasn't prepared for this? What would I tell my children? What would I tell our mortgage company? How would our life be different? I would never put my family in a position to suffer for me to feel like I was living this dream that social media says I need to dream. I'm out here grinding, getting it. No, I don't want to struggle. And so that meant getting up, going to work every single day. That meant getting up, working on my business before work. That meant working on it doing my lunch break, working on it while I was at work. Like all of these things so that my children's lifestyle and my family's lifestyle did not change. And it was knowing ahead of time COVID has shown us that everything can stop.
Man.
It can shut down.
Absolutely.
And so because we knew that in 2020, my goal always and forever, we knew going into the winter, it's like a slow months. And so my goal was I need to basically balance out all the money that we make throughout the year. So where if ever there was a month that things were slow, everything slowed down, we wouldn't feel it. A lot of people don't do that because the money's coming in so fast at times. It's kind of like people that sell drugs. They're always
or
like
the casino. I'm thinking the casino.
That too. They're like, look at me going ghetto, talking about selling drugs. But it's like when the money is coming in so fast, people always say, well, why didn't you just stop? It's like because it never seemed like it was slowed down. I worked as an executive assistant making $30,000 a year. So to have a $30,000 month, a $15,000 month, a $20,000,
top of the world. Yeah, you made it.
Man, I'm like, I don't need to do nothing else because but it's like I knew this could quickly turn and be a nothing, a $0 month, and that's been December.
Yep.
And I'm okay. I'm not stressed. Life's gonna go on. Christmas is gonna happen. My son's birthday. All these good things because we were prepared. And I haven't said, well, I'm having a sale or everything must go or blah, 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 blah. I'm not worried.
Yep.
Because the foundation for what we do was already set before I decided to become a full-time entrepreneur. Our family's life, our goals, our budget, all those things, we was already taken care of. So I think just as an entrepreneur, stay at your job as long as you possibly can. And even when you leave your job, it's super important to not feel like you need to spend it because you have it.
Sure.
You need to have some contingency put up because you just never know.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, and I know it's going to be different for each individual, but when did you know, okay, it's time for me to step out of my 9-to-5 and go full time into Just Elope?
So we set some parameters. We knew we wanted to buy a house first.
Okay.
All of our debt paid off.
Okay.
And I needed to get a new car.
Okay.
So once we put that out there, my husband was like, this is, because I was like, hey, what do you think it's going to take? Like, realistically. He's like, you need to have 6 months of your salary saved. Like 6 months of what you currently make from your 9-to-5. That if you can live off Just Elope, then you need to have that money saved up because if you're not paying bills with it, then you should be able to save it.
Yep.
6 months of your salary saved. We need to have already closed on our house because nothing can change within that time frame. You decided to quit your job. We were pregnant with our third baby, and so it was I needed a bigger car, and it was like okay, literally within 60 days, all those things were done.
Wow.
It was. I feel like we set this big goal because it felt like, okay, it's going to take us some time to get there. Because that fear of leaving my job, my security blanket, no matter what it was, how small, and now it seems what the pay was, it still was what we were used to and what we had. And within 60 days, it was done. Wow. And I've been a full-time entrepreneur since September of 2020.
Okay. Well, congrats to you and your family. That is awesome. That is awesome.
Thank you.
Definitely not in the show notes that we sent over to you, but I'm curious, just from a percentage standpoint, you talked about a contingency plan.
Yeah.
I know when we started our business, you get those first couple of checks, you want to go spend it all.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, well, for sure, 25% of this is going directly back into the business. Like, we will never touch that. And then we took another 10%. It's like, okay, well, that's going into savings. And then at the end of the day, you end up, splitting up or taking home like 40% of that dollar.
And then taxes.
And then taxes, right? Totally different episode. But what was your contingency plan? What were your thoughts? How did you figure out how to divvy up? Because it's really quick. When you see a $30,000 month, like I said, you think, happens with a lot of athletes, you think that's going to last forever. Yeah. And the next month you will make $2,000, right? So literally.
Yes, literally.
and we've been in business 7 years and it still happens. Yeah. Right? Because you can't plan for a pandemic. Yes. You can't plan for a change in Instagram algorithm, but I'm gonna get off my tangent and soapbox.
No, trust me, I know.
How did you build your contingency to not go out there and spend it all?
So basically, the way it works is my husband pays all of our household bills. So everything that we need to live, my husband takes care of. So my responsibility is anything that is extra for our family. Sure. So we set a budget of, okay, any type of trips, anything that we have planned, the kids being in sports, that sort of thing, I would cover. Gotcha. We put, but 50% of everything that we make goes back into savings. Wow. A hard 50% because there's no reason for it not to. Sure. Because I'm not paying house bills. Sure. So you got to think, if I'm not paying household bills, there's no reason why 50% of that money cannot go into savings.
Sure.
And so from that point of our profit, because we pay our team and that sort of thing, but 50% of whatever our profit is will go back into our savings.
Wow.
And then we would take the rest of it to put, whether we were running ads, we have our billboard, paying whoever it is that we have to pay. That's basically how we did it. But it had to be really, for me, it was important to be really aggressive with the money that we saved, because my fear is I know what it feels like to be broke.
Sure.
It's not fun. And I would never want to feel like that again. I would never want to experience that to fulfill my dream of being able to work from home,
Sure.
run my own business, have my own hours. And so being aggressive with the savings was super, super important, to where when there were months where, like now, there's no money being made, we still have the billboard, the publicist, the this, the that, all of these things that have to be, the ads that have to be paid for. That doesn't stop.
Sure.
And so the kids being involved in anything is still my responsibility. To Christmas is here. These are my responsibilities that I contribute to my family. And so it's like, yes, there are times where I'm like, oh, well, we want to do this for the house. We want to get new hardwood floors. Okay, we have the money. It's in the savings. That's what it's for. We'll pull it out. My husband's theater room. Oh, let's get this done. So you have the money. So of course it fluctuates. We're not always just sitting on, 30 bands in the bank. No.
Sure.
It's not happening like that on a cassette. Not at all. But we're not worried. And to me, being as aggressive as you possibly can with savings, but then savings is twofold, because are you truly saving if you have debt? So if you have $30,000 in debt and $30,000 in the bank,
your net worth is zero. Yep.
So it's like, just even making the decision of, okay, well, this month we're not going to put anything. We're going to put a lower percentage over there so that we can pay for this.
Sure.
So it's just about balance. But I truly believe that until your business is just free flowing and you can forecast what's going to happen and that sort of thing, you need to continue to have money saved. That contingency, that plan of action. If you sell a $100 package of whatever, you need to say, for every $100 that I bring in, well, 15 of it needs to go in the savings for taxes. So now you're down to 85.
Yep.
So then if you say, okay, well, I'm gonna put 50% of this over here, you don't have $100.
No, nowhere close to it.
You do not have $800.
You got like 30, if that.
Yeah, and I think that people kind of confuse when you say, I've made 6 figures this year. They're looking like, man, you rolling in the dough. No.
You quickly realize how little 6 figures is when you have a bigger plan.
Yes.
Right? If you want to just go blow it on some toys,
yes.
then okay, you got some money. But you're trying to build wealth and change
yes.
the future and trajectory of your family.
Yes.
100,000 is nothing.
It's nothing. And
yeah.
then taxes. But
taxes.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, we talk about taxes off the camera. Boy, tell me about it. I understand taxes. I know you talk about not just planning someone's wedding, but helping them plan their marriage and also supporting wives.
Yeah.
Where does that come from you?
So for me, I think it's really important to have transparent conversations about what marriage and being in a relationship actually is. We often hear about couple goals. Oh, look at them, their couple goals. And then somebody gets a divorce and they're like, oh my God, I'm never getting married. And it's like, what about them made you even consider them to be some type of goal? Is because they took a nice picture? Like what is it? And so I really believe that having real and open conversations about what being married actually is like, what's it like to have children, to have a family, how the dynamics change, speaking up for yourself, whether you are the husband or the wife, about what your needs are. pre and post kids is super, super important. And having these conversations before you get engaged, in my opinion, is best.
Sure.
People go through premarital counseling, and that just kind of blows my mind, because it's like, you've already asked this person to marry you, and then you go to counseling to figure out, is there a reason like why you shouldn't get married?
Sure.
You should have asked these questions before you proposed. Sure. Because now most people will continue to go through with the engagement, because the embarrassment that's associated with calling off an engagement is something totally different from saying, you and I just broke up. And so I think that really pushing that on to people, especially in the Black community, that therapy is okay. Absolutely. and that is something that, you know, it's okay to ask these questions, to bring in a third party. A lot of people, I know myself included, has always been this thing of what happens in this house stays in this house, and that's not the healthiest thing to do.
Sure.
And so I think that just knowing, I want to see other people's marriages thrive. I love being married. I love my husband. He's the sweetest thing. Seriously, he is the best thing that could have ever happened to me. He is the type of dad I wish I had when I was a child. Sure. All of these great things. And does that mean that every day is easy? Does that mean every day I'm sitting around here like, oh, I love you? No. Some days it's like, bruh, all y'all can go. Like, everybody in here, your kids, get your kids, and all y'all can leave. But I think that what's really helped us is just being honest with each other about how we feel about things, and not sugarcoating it, and trying our best to surround ourselves with other couples that are like-minded, transparent. Yeah. So definitely, and with wives, I am a really big proponent of women being in charge, being the boss, like taking care of business. And I think that sometimes we get lost in being moms and being wives, that becomes our new identity. Sure. For a long time, if somebody asked me, you know, hey, stand up and introduce yourself, I would say, well, my name is Jennifer. I've been married for X number of years. I have, you know, two kids at the time. My immediate thing was, I'm a wife and I'm a mom. Because I feel like those two, you typically lead with what you think is best.
Sure.
And so, not that I don't think those things are best, but I'm a whole...
Yeah, it's more to the package.
Listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I want to help women figure out and come up with a plan for what their purpose is.
Sure.
So many of us have these ideas that are just jumbled around in our head, and you don't know where to start, and you start and stop so many things, and you don't know how to lay it all out and come up with a plan of action. Whatever you want to do, you can have a 90-day plan to get something accomplished.
Absolutely.
Instead of trying to think about, well, in a year from now, I want to do this. No, let's take it on one project at a time.
Sure.
Because people are so rushed to put out something, and it's because they think it's a good idea. But who asked you for it?
Yeah.
Why are you in a rush to put out something that nobody even asked you for? It's like me saying, oh, I want to sell these coffee mugs. I got to do it tomorrow. Who asked you for that coffee mug that I couldn't take?
Yeah.
It's more time to perfect it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, we'll leave it there. I think that was solid. I appreciate your time. Looking forward to what you're doing in the future, and let's stay connected. Appreciate you.
Thank you.